Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
The Cerritos is en route to the Leperian system to assist the Archimedes in a first contact.
Yes, that is exactly what we need to save Mom.
Oh, and I think I heard Ransom say my name today. He might have said Boimler, but still. Name recognition, oh my god!
What? What was that?
Oh yeah, no, I always add little personal details to him. Makes him fun. Got caught sniffing the captain's chair again.
They're all like this?
No, that's just one or two. The rest of them are very professional. The alien atmosphere is giving me insane gas. Gotta be better about hiding my purple hair dye. Nobody knows my real hair color. An alien bird ate my comm badge. Dropped my tricorder in the toilet again. You can just skip past all that. I actually woke myself up. The gas pains were so bad. I just wish I could fart.
The moist man-made marmalade. The moist man-made marmalade.
Why would you? You've never said that.
Those are
before.
vocal exercises.
Okay, let's start the podcast. Okay, I think we're good.
Oh,
to go.
now you're in a rush.
No, I'm not in a rush. We've done the vocal exercises.
We don't want too many sillies to get out.
Guys, if you have too many sillies, that could be a problem.
But if you don't have enough sillies, if you don't have enough sillies, that's a problem too.
Moderate this.
You need some sillies.
So part of the reason,
save some sillies for later.
Save sillies, because I can't think of anything. Save sillies, Sally. Stranded Sally saved her sillies.
All right, no, we're good with that. So we have to remember, folks, please, we have to start the podcast, and we have to start it efficiently and efficaciously.
This again.
No, because we are now starting a brand new season of new Star Trek.
It has to be clear.
And there's going to be all these new listeners. And they're going to be like, what is this show all about? And they're going to,
And we're just going to be goofing around.
which is technically what the show is all about.
Are you saying where you're having a fresh start? Is that
No,
what's
I'm
happening?
saying we have extra
Fresh
stuff
start?
to get through. We got to explain that we do the new shows when they're out, and then when they're not out, we do old shows.
You think we'll have new listeners?
We always have new listeners when there's a new season of a show out. It's just how it happens. Because people are Googling around, and they're all like looking on Twitter and Facebook, and they're like, I want to hear some people talk about the Star Trek.
They're Googling around.
You sound like an adult version of Bobby from Bobby's World.
Please don't say that. Okay. This is episode 147.
I knew that. I was going to say that.
Dan's been keeping track. 147.
Oh, we can say all sorts of lies too, like I've been keeping track of the episodes and things like that.
Look, Dan, just because there are new listeners doesn't mean they don't have the capacity or capability to go back and listen to
But we can get them going for a little while.
All right, that's a fair point. So this is the It's Got Star Trek podcast. It's the 147th episode of that podcast. Yes, new listeners. All right, we already did that bit.
Next bit, be very funny.
Lower decks.
Oh yeah, we will have spoilers. That's for the new listeners too, because you never know. You might have a new listener who's
spoiled.
like, "I'm going to listen to this podcast," and I mean, you should expect spoilers, but in case you didn't expect spoilers, there's going to be spoilers.
I think it's become pretty standard practice on YouTube and things like that to say these will have spoilers, even though it's obvious it will. You always have to say it ahead of time.
We always have that in the episode description.
That's responsible.
We'll include it on the episode proper today. So which episode are we discussing, gentlemen?
Is it called Grounded?
It is.
Do you know what season and episode it is?
Yes. Yes, I do. Do you?
I should hope so.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I was just asking you because I wanted to know, see if you knew.
Well, I know. So I hope that you know.
I know. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Because I thought you did.
This is what I was talking about. We're dilly-dallying.
Oh, no.
There's all these new people from Canada
new people.
and stuff. They're going to be all
From
like...
Canada.
That's freaking me
like,
out,
I don't
man.
understand their
Canada,
process.
Come on.
Canada.
What's going on? Yeah, so what's wait, what was the question?
Why Canada?
Whose
That was a
question?
question.
Oh, no, it was which season and which episode.
Oh, yeah.
They don't
Season
care
3.
about that
Is it
because it's
season 3?
fucking obvious. It's the season premiere.
Oh.
of the
which season though? We got the episode number.
Does it really matter?
3. They know that.
This is a tedious bit I'm doing.
It is. It's an increasingly tedious bit. It didn't start out that way. It grew into the tedium.
Yep. Give it room to grow.
So today we will start with our brief overall impressions. Very brief. And then a few things to cover are talking a little bit about Mike McMahon and his team's deep understanding of the history of Star Trek 2-part episodes. I think the way they wrote and structured this episode demonstrates a deep knowledge of what goes on with two-parter episodes. Particularly, I'm specifically calling out the fact that often the second part is not as good or interesting. The resolution to the cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do some clever things here to avoid that same trap. The next thing would be staying true to the premise of the show. The resolution of the show also sort of accentuates what's going on with the whole premise of Lower Decks, and then there's just like some weird internet people that don't seem to get that, so we can chat a little bit about that. Key moments in the episode, just cool stuff that popped out. It's always tricky with Lower Decks because it's well written, it's fast paced, it's short. So sometimes it's just easier just to be like, oh, boom, boom. These are the things that we thought were interesting.
There's a lot of visual stuff.
I don't know why I said boom, boom. We will review a selection of the Easter eggs. As is typical of Lower Decks, it's nearly impossible to go over every single Easter egg out there, but you can find some lists.
I think Kelsey Grammer was in this episode.
Wow.
Well, not Kelsey Grammer, but the character he played.
But I like to imagine it as Kelsey Grammer. Like, obviously it's the character, but I like to think of Kelsey Grammer as actually being in it.
Lots of people like to think about Kelsey Grammer. And then
I heard he's a partier.
Yes. So do you remember when he crashed his Dodge Viper into his fence?
Right.
I think NBC
like that,
gave the whole cast of Frasier Dodge Vipers or something. I could have the car wrong, but I think it was a Dodge Viper. And I think he got hammered.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Smashed through his gate.
Yeah, I don't remember the car, but I remember hearing about that.
All right, and then we'll conclude with any odds and ends, any things we missed out on or didn't fit into one of the other conversations. Okay, everyone got that?
I think so. I think I've gotten it by now. Now that we need to know if the audience has gotten that.
Hopefully the audience has got it.
We will wait to find out if you got it, and then we'll continue with our podcast once we find out. So call us now.
Follow up.
How long are we going to wait?
Till we get a Twitter post.
Yeah, we'll pause the podcast and we'll come back.
That'd be fucked up.
Yes, it would. But new listeners, note we do try to provide some amount of structure to this podcast. We also often fail at that. Don't worry, it's perfectly normal. Don't be alarmed if we don't accomplish any of the goals that we've set out at the beginning of the podcast here tonight.
And just like the word failed begins with F, sometimes we say fuck.
Okay.
That also begins with F.
The podcast has been labeled E for explicit. E for explicit.
Good reason.
Okay.
It'd be cool if it was, X for explicit.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be cool. All right, let's get right into it.
Triple X is not
grounded.
actually a rating. Triple X isn't a real rating. It's just like something it's a promotional tool.
Yeah, like the parental advisory sticker.
Well, that was from Tipper Gore,
but it became a promotional tool.
But I'm saying,
tool.
But like Triple X, it was not an actual rating, a proper rating for movies. It was just like X. There was X, I think. But when they say Triple X, that's just them being like, well, we're extra bad.
Yeah.
And
we'll get back to Star Trek. I was letting you run a little bit because I was trying to see if I could work out a tool, like a promotional tool and the band tool, but I wasn't able to come up with anything.
So since you couldn't come up with anything, it's time to move on.
It's time to move on.
Okay, I see how.
He's got nothing. He's got nothing. So it's got Star Trek.
So he's got
Okay, all right.
I was just there to stall until he came up with nothing.
Well, that's how we support each other.
Okay.
In this day and age. Overall impressions.
I was into it. This was like a real true Lower Decks kind of event that occurred where all this
It was very classic Lower Decks.
An episode happened. Characters performed.
It was the show.
It was an event that occurred.
No, I'm saying
it happened.
I watched him watch it.
I'm saying the event that I was continuing to talk. This is also what happens is Patrick or Jesse or someone. I'll be in the middle of saying something,
don't do that.
and they'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What? That's crazy, and they won't let me finish what I'm saying. So of course they don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not done saying it yet.
Yeah, or like you said, said a word wrong, like a little bit funny,
right? And and then it'll all fall apart. But so they'll gaslight me, constantly telling me that I'm not not making sense when they won't let me finish my sentences.
I don't think it's gaslighting, but
I think it is gaslighting because you call me crazy and like I'm not making sense and I'm not even through with it. Okay, and you would say it's not gaslighting if it's true.
I honestly don't think I've ever said you're fucking crazy.
But you say things like I don't know what you're talking about, like before I'm done saying something, which I think is a form of gaslighting. But like,
we are humans, we are perceptual beings. And
this is the part where he condescends me.
No, we are not attempting to condescend you.
Well,
we are not. We are not.
Right. No, that's okay.
But
this is just how it goes.
But isn't it nice and sort of nice? Isn't it freeing to talk to the new listeners? You were just talking to the new. It's nice,
they have all sorts of wonderful thoughts.
You can stick wonderful thoughts into their minds because they're new. They don't know who the fuck you are. I am.
Listen to me. I can groom you.
They can't even imagine why they tuned in and stayed listening.
So
this far.
what I was saying was, it's like a real Lower Decks thing that happened, an event as it were, because there was all this plotting and scheming and crazy stuff that they were trying to do to save the way, that was timed well. That was
save the whales.
See, that was appropriately timed. I didn't mean to fuck that, but like Jesse, like you said, when I fuck up a word, then the whole thing falls apart.
It seems like it was scripted. Almost.
I know, but it wasn't. Yeah. So the Lower Decks crew, they all did some stuff and did this crazy plan and all this stuff, but meanwhile, the bridge crew had this super effective, like, secret plan going on behind the scenes. And it was just classic, like, Lower Decks, them complaining, like, we never know what goes on with the bridge crew. And this time was to the extreme. It's like, the bridge crew is solving this whole fucking thing.
They were really, this time they were really blown away. Like, they were just like, whoa.
Yeah, it was super like that. And I was, for a brief, small fraction, I won't tell you how many fractions, but a fraction of a second, I was initially like, what the fuck? They just I was slightly disappointed first because I was like, well, they just glossed over that whole shit, and then like before that thought got formed in my head, I was like, oh yeah, that's the point.
And
that was the whole fucking point.
We're going to discuss that in more detail,
which I thought was great.
Now, there's some internet people who didn't follow this. I mean, they started the same path you did, but they didn't turn around. So we'll chat about that a little bit more. I thought another really great season premiere of Lower Decks, arguably the best season premiere yet in terms of confident. You know, it was like
all
a
of Star Trek.
No, of Lower Decks.
Well, there's only been 3.
Yes, I know. We can still compare it to the other 2.
But now that's enough to make a good solid comparison.
It was very confident.
It's not as impressive as if there were 4.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All I was saying is that this was like there was an assuredness.
It comes out with a bang when there's like a news feed, and then there's like all sorts of references to this, that, and the other.
Things were
all
woven,
the fun Easter eggs.
Things were woven together well. I thought Mariner had some good moments. Beckett Mariner.
There was no fat. You know, they trimmed the fat or whatever they cut it. Appropriate phrase is,
which they often do in Lower Decks.
Already, yeah. Lower Decks has never been one to have it, but in previous in the series premiere, and I think to a certain extent in the season 2 premiere, there was a lot of the world building, setting the stage, and not that was wrong, but that it might be a little less engaging than now. We're at the 3rd season; these characters are firmly set up. We know and more specifically, the writers, and they've always done this on Lower Decks, but the writers are writing from the characters. They're not writing from the plot. So in other words, they're not coming up with the clever plot and then squeezing in the characters. They're coming up with plots based off of the personalities and capabilities of the characters, which you don't always have to do that, but that's kind of a good way to have a really engaging storyline,
and I think it allowed for a little bit of growth in the characters. This is the first.
Absolutely,
this is the first time we saw Beckett Mariner cry, for example. Like she was really super worried. We never saw her worried, and this was the second time that Boimler pulled one over on her, which was when when they went into the Cisco's Creole kitchen or whatever, and she did that thing where she was
Creole as opposed to Creole.
Sometimes
I'm sure it's a perfectly acceptable pronunciation.
Maybe it's Creole. I just said Creole.
Most people say
Creole. Now I think of Crayola crayons.
Creole.
Okay, I'll say Creole.
I like those too.
So Creole.
Put enough hot sauce on.
So when she did that thing where she like timed her entrance and Rutherford called her out on it, and Boimler was all like, "Yeah, look at this chump over here," which was like usually it's Mariner doing that on Boimler. The only time that I've seen that happen elsewhere was, what was it? Moist Vessel. Moist Vessel was, I think season 1.
Was that the one with the Ferengi business?
It was season 1, episode 4. It was with the Ascending guy.
Oh, yes.
The guy who was ascending.
Yeah.
And
the koala.
I believe that is that one.
Yeah, the koala.
Anyways, well, it was basically Boimler did some cool like dance, and this is Moist Vessel. It goes, because Boimler goes, he's doing. He goes, this is what it is. This goes, Mariner.
I'm excited to find out what he does.
This is the line. This is the line. This is at season 1, episode 4 of Moist Vessel. Moist.
For new listeners, this is a feature where Dan reads the internet, or kind of reads the internet,
and then stumbles around it for a bit first. So
I
Mariner,
thought these were just his notes.
Wait a second.
When Mariner, wait, I'm stalling for time, but it sounds like I'm trying to make it sound like I'm saying things, but I'm not. Mariner goes, have fun with your terrible jobs, and Boimler goes, I get to go clean the executive conference room and eat some lobster ravioli. Peace. And then he starts voguing, doing some weird thing, and she's like, sorry, it doesn't look cool when you do it, and then he leaves, and she's like, damn, it did.
That's
look cool.
when he's doing the sarcastic Vulcan salutes.
Yeah, right.
Like she was doing.
And I can only think of that is the first time. I can't think of any other times, but this was the first time, and then this episode was the second time when Boimler got one over on Mariner a little bit.
What was he drinking? Anybody was that a recognizable drink? The little one with he had a little cocktail umbrella in it.
Right. Umbrella. It's pronounced umbrella. You pronounce it umbrella.
All right.
Umbrella.
Okay, that was.
I don't know what drink that is. It's some kind of cocktail.
Are you talking about this episode or that episode?
This episode. Over here, not there.
Oh man.
Getting from there to here.
Oh man.
Getting from there to here. Reference.
Okay, so the overall impressions done. Jesse,
what do you have?
What were your overall impressions? Good, bad,
Yeah.
good.
Yes, positive. Very favorable impressions, I'd say.
There you go.
Quite
it was,
favorable.
it was all very lower decks, like you said.
There was the plot wove together nicely. I thought.
And it's there's been enough episodes of the show, and they've had enough adventures, and the characters they're more fleshed out, and they're being themselves, and like like you said, I guess it was written that way, and I mean, but
it's like you take them and put them in a new scenario, and then the scenario plays out kind of the way it makes sense for it to play out, given their attributes.
I didn't think of this at the time, and it's nothing major, but it's an example of this might be just how our introduction to Tendi and Rutherford in this episode, this season, is just them eating together, and we already know like what their relationship was. Where
they're usually eating together, actually, when we see them.
But like this one is they're on like a special sort of
Cisco's.
They're at Cisco's together. Whereas like the end of the first season was one of the many things it was dealing with was Rutherford. Here's spoilers for end of season 1.
Well, they have to have seen the previous seasons. We expect new listeners.
Come on,
we expect you've seen all the episodes leading up to this one.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
We presume you haven't seen future episodes that have not yet aired.
If not, get out of here. I'm putting my thumb up going, get out of here. So Boimler ends it by...
Good call on the describing the visual.
Yeah, I know. It makes it better. Rutherford loses his memory of Tendi, and then, of course, Tendi does her whole switcheroo. She's like, seems like she's all bummed out. She's like, oh, no. Or no, she didn't say, oh, no. She's like, you don't remember me? And she's like, that's great. Now we get to be best friends again, or whatever. And so that whole transition from season 1 to 2 is more like establishing even a strong relationship between Rutherford and Tendi. And then later in season 2, there's Mariner's like, aren't you and Rutherford dating? She's like, not really, and so... And then, which was kind of an interesting line. I guess we've established they're still just friends. But like season 3, like it began not having to explain any of that. It's just like, oh, there's Rutherford and Tendi doing their Rutherford and Tendi thing, which is they're close friends, and they're the closest. I don't know about closest of pals. I don't know if they're gonna go further, but
I don't know about you guys. I think it is 100% possible for men and women, professional colleagues, to be very good friends without there being anything romantic involved.
Yeah, but TV shows sometimes.
But
they're in Starfleet. They're they're weirdos.
I'm not sure if I would extend that to people who build models of starships and space stations together.
Yeah,
I think I will allow that it's possible, but I think that's That's an intimate activity.
And it is intimate, especially
is,
when
yeah.
the Doppler effect, when
Putting the decals on.
and Rutherford was like,
love.
Rutherford was
Doppler effect.
when all the Dupplers were, yeah,
That's great.
yeah, when they were all when
The
Richard
rise of the Dupplers.
when Richard Kind was splitting into a million things.
The embarrassment of Dupplers.
Wasn't that the episode? Oh, wasn't that? Was it called? I
It
don't
was an
know.
embarrassment of Dupplers because
Oh.
that's the name for a group of Dupplers,
Why
like
w-
a murder of crows.
Why was I saying the
Or a gaggle of geese.
That was a
Doppler
joke.
You were saying the Doppler
Doppler.
I thought you were making a joke.
Yeah, we
Doppler.
thought that was just a clever joke of yours.
I thought that was real.
Nope.
Okay, well, I'm awesome. But so there was a Rutherford was all bummed because he couldn't remember how to finish putting the ship together because he's like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know that you're my
Right.
friend. And she's like, we always get to this part and start over just so we can make it again. And that seems extra intimate,
Yes.
like just to sabotage it just so you can keep making.
Wait. You mean sabotage?
Sabotage. Sabotage.
Oh, I wish I had that sound clip ready.
You can insert it in there. You just put it. Wait, you can put it in right here.
Yeah.
Sabotage.
There.
All right. There we go. There we go.
That was great.
That was hilarious. All right. Why do we move along home to the first main discussion point? This is something I was thinking about and was curious about.
That's better than saying back at the ranch. It used to be back at the ranch, but I think move along home has finally established itself.
Yeah,
as
move
Did we
along
ever
home
say
is-
back at the ranch?
Well, on the podcast, we usually say "move along home"
every once in a while we
due
said
to
back at
the
ranch.
Yeah.
famous one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine.
We've been saying that a lot.
Yeah, we do. But
Even before
We covered
did
that episode.
one.
I don't remember which episode it was on of It's Got Star Trek, but we a number of months ago.
Well, we
at
said
some
we've-
point we
we
covered
was-
that.
But we
Move
started
along home.
saying move. You started saying move along home before we did the move along home episode.
Yeah.
But I think just like season 3 of the Lower Decks, we're finally establishing our characters that this is an official thing that you should know about us. Is that Patrick actually mostly says it. But
yeah, totally.
yeah. So we're mirroring parallel with the Lower Decks. Moving back at the ranch.
Yeah, what I was saying is that I just wanted to chat about this idea about how I think Mike McMahon and the writing staff, and I guess the producers as well, whoever's ultimately Mike McMahon is ultimately in charge of this, but I'm sure the credit should be distributed appropriately. And we know Mike McMahon knows Star Trek. We know he loves Star Trek. We know he was doing the TNG season 8 Twitter, which was so brilliant long ago. He worked on Rick and Morty. I mean, the guy is clever and he knows his Trek lore. His writing staff clearly knows their Trek lore.
Trek lore. I am Trek lore.
That's fantastic.
I am Trek lore.
But he's also just a very good TV writer. He knows how to, and not just writing, but this developing these stories and playing within not just the TV world, but specifically the Star Trek television world and how to play around with some of those tropes. And not all the tropes are things that happen in the plot or a thing a character does. Some of those tropes are just things that come up a lot in story structure in Star Trek. And a common perception is that a number of the 2-part episodes of Star Trek, the second part is not as satisfying as the first. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean you don't like it. But I think one of the main examples people bring up is The Best of Both Worlds Part 2. The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 is one of the most intense, crazy, insane episodes of Star Trek, ending with Riker yelling fire to blow up the Borg cube that Picard has been kidnapped and taken to, right?
Because there's usually a lot of build up in the first episode to build you
lot of
up to like
tension.
this like suspenseful moment where you're like, to be continued.
And then they gotta resolve it.
Yeah. And then it's just kind of
And they often come up with cool resolutions, and I would say The Best of Both Worlds Part 2, excellent resolution.
You know what a terrible example, but like a prime example of resolutions that don't pay off was the
Is this a New Year's Eve joke?
No, it's not.
It's
a joke.
like fucking August.
What?
You're talking about resolutions. I
Oh.
thought you could go New
Oh.
Year's
Oh, that's
resolutions, or I thought you were going to make a 4K
No, I was going to talk about that
Joke.
show in the late 80s, early 90s.
Golden Girls,
Sledgehammer.
Empty Nest,
Sledgehammer. Don't you remember that
Time
show?
Tracks.
Don't you remember that show Sledgehammer?
Yeah, I do remember.
Where he had a
Sledgehammer.
44 Magnum, and
Yeah.
the season finale, some shit blew up, and it was like to be continued next season, but they never had a next
they
season.
canceled it. It was
So we
sort
never
of like
got
what
to
happened.
find out.
It's sort of like what happened to Alf.
Yeah, right. Alf ended horribly depressing.
Yeah,
It was terribly
it
depressing.
was terribly depressing. The show Alf
Yeah.
that ended.
Hey, Willie!
There we go. Sorry. So new listeners, we occasionally try to manipulate the conversation.
They're taking me to a place where there's no more cat.
where Dan can
Is that a
talk
good
like,
one?
Talk like Alf. That was pretty solid.
Hey, Willie. Hey.
You got to do something about Melmac.
Melmac.
There you go. All right, that satisfies me.
What's that game they play on Melmac with the fish?
Booyah baseball.
Play Booyah Baseball and Melmac. I'm Gordon Shumway.
Willie.
Willie.
All right.
It took me a minute to figure out that you were trying to cue me up there.
Yes, it did.
I wasn't picking up on that.
For the audience at home, new and old.
It was a little strange.
I was like waving my hands around and trying to mime like Alf.
And I was like, that's an interesting point. You know? So.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make is that Star Trek two-parters often have a less successful, not necessarily unsatisfying, but a less successful second half.
This point has been trying to be made for a while now.
Yes, this is just how things go.
We almost got there.
On the It's Got Star Trek podcast. But I think they managed to simultaneously parody and subvert this fact of Star Trek in that it's a great episode, but the resolution is all like quote unquote unearned. You know, it's just like this rapid resolution, which is often what happens. It gets to a certain minute in the episode length, and then you're like, okay, boom, we got to have the solution. And that's exactly what happens here. But they also end up subverting it because it's not unearned. It's not really unearned because we're just watching the B plot. Right. You know, we're watching like you were saying earlier, Dan, we're watching the lower decks. And so all this stuff was going on in the background. So this resolution just pops out and it's like, all right, boom, it's super fast. But it's similar to what you were saying, Dan, is that you're like, wait a second. You're like, oh, okay, that's funny because they had this whole crack team of people working on this shit.
And it's
like
always
Tuvok.
Tuvok
and Captain Bateman.
But it would like kind of like when Shax came back to life, you know?
When Shax came back the very next day, when Shax came back, they thought he was a goner. You know that song?
Yeah.
The original's about a cat.
Yeah.
About a cat.
Cat
Got any
comes back.
Got any cat?
Oh, there wasn't even an Alf reference there.
Well, I mentioned a cat.
But you said every time you mention a cat, I'm supposed to freak out?
Willie.
No, that's Pee Wee Herman-ish. It's in the direction of Pee Wee Herman.
Is cat the word of the day? When he does that laugh, it's like
Pee Wee
this
Herman's like
obsessive,
70 years old now.
Hey, Willie. So, yeah, no, I'm reminded of like when Shax went away and then he came back to life and Mariner's just like, oh, and Rutherford's like, what the fuck happened to Shax? And Mariner's like, oh, yeah, this bridge crew's always like having some fucked up shit like that and coming back to life. We try not to think about it. And this was kind of along those same lines except it resulted in the plot getting solved.
Yep.
Of just like, that's the same thing. It's like, oh, the bridge crew just went off and did their super secret plan. We learned Admiral Freeman's first name is Alonzo.
With the nickname Zoe.
With the nickname Zoe. When he was saying at the beginning to Mariner, when he said, I was just thinking, should I call her Beckett because they're all Mariner? Or no, Freeman. No, they're Freeman. She's Mariner.
Freeman.
There's something funny going on there.
I'm going to stick to Mariner.
I'm going to stick to Mariner.
I like to imagine people plying through the waves.
Plying the seas.
Oh.
Sailing ship.
Right, like Aqua Person.
The salty air.
The seven seas.
I used to work with a bunch of Navy people that kept putting salt in their coffee.
Oh, that's weird.
What?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I did. I grew to
You think
enjoy
he's
the
just, you think
taste
he's
of
just
it.
making it up?
I kind of think he is.
No, they would
Are you
get, they
calling-
would they
you
wouldn't put
calling
it in
him
the
a liar?
You calling me a fucking liar? They wouldn't put it in the
Maybe.
coffee pot. They would pour the coffee
Just
and-
sprinkle a little.
and they would sprinkle with their fingers a little.
You
It's
put
like being at sea.
But you put lemon juice and salt to clean the coffee pot, but I've never heard of putting it in the coffee you're
Lemon
drinking.
juice, that sounds delicious.
No, I mean you don't drink it. You put to clean the pot. You put in lemon
heard of
juice
that.
and salt. You heard of that?
I've never heard of that.
No, I have to clean a nasty coffee pot. You put lemon juice.
I've
and
never
salt.
heard of cleaning the coffee pot.
Yeah, what you talking about?
We never heard of cleaning things.
No, I like a patina.
You ever heard of
I like a
cleaning
patina
things?
on the inside of the.
Don't you guys clean
of
things?
the vessel? just as
Okay.
one of those moves.
What were we talking about?
I was just making.
The
minor point.
I remember
that I think they're leaning into this idea that the second episode of a cliffhanger is never going to be fully satisfying, except in this case where they're actually like, we're going to play with that and then thus make it actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, that hit the nail on the
That
head.
was a more succinct way to make the point I was making earlier in a convoluted and stupid way.
But we didn't go on the adventure. Or we wouldn't have gone on the adventure.
I tell you what we are going to do.
I was just okay.
Take a break.
Okay, we're gonna take.
I was going to say we're going to take a quick break.
Okay, fine.
For the new users.
Take a break.
New users. I hope your UX is doing well.
I'm sorry.
You got any GUIs?
New listeners.
You got any GUI elements? You need fucking
GUIs.
I used to run,
GUIs?
I used
We
to
need
run a
fucking
BBS.
What are you
and
talking
I think
about?
of everyone as users.
Weird.
Everyone I interact with, ever since I ran that BBS from the age of 11 to 16 or something.
I ran a BBS too.
Yes, he also had a successful BBS. Dan and
Successful.
I
I mean, what does successful? What does successful mean in the BBS world?
Dan is being
Your high school
humble.
Your high school friends.
Successful enough, I bet you don't want to say the name of it.
No, well, I mean,
because you think people out there are going to be listening. We know some people who were on that BBS who were listening. Tarek was on that BBS.
Okay, but I mean, no, it was fun. We had a lot
we had a bunch of laughs.
We had a bunch of laughs. We were high school
pre-internet,
kids. But what does successful mean?
It's a means a variety of things to a variety of people.
Exactly.
What do you want it to mean?
It's a meaningless
what
statement.
you want it to mean.
Which makes it a meaningless statement.
What does it mean to you?
And I'm saying it shouldn't be a meaningless statement.
All I'm saying is,
what does it mean to you?
I apologize when I refer
I
to
say I had fun.
To the listeners.
And we did get some unknown people joining
as users, because we don't want people to think that they are drug users, for example.
You could be. I won't judge.
We don't judge if you are all out there
not that kind of user.
doing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Either
some
during
would say
or prior
we do
to
drugs
listening.
at every meal.
Yeah. Caffeine's a drug.
Trans fats.
All right. Let's get back on track.
Okay.
Get back on track.
Yeah,
we still haven't taken the break, so let's take the break, and then we'll get back and we'll continue this conversation. All right?
A break.
Taking a break right now. All righty, we're back from that break.
Taking a break. Taking a break. Better hold on. We're taking a break. Took the break.
We already
took the break. I'm sick of you. Oh wait, I was meant to say one point. One thing I meant to say was Alonzo at the beginning. Alonzo Freeman said to Mariner,
Admiral Freeman.
Yes, Admiral Freeman. Alonzo Freeman.
And he's like a full admiral. Her uncle was like a vice admiral because he had three pips or leads.
So at the beginning, and this was along the point you were making about the things that were happening with the stuff. Yeah. He was saying to Mariner, he goes, just trust in Starfleet. They know what they're doing. Do you think at that point they had a plan for me? I mean, there's no.
Oh yeah, it was already well underway.
Do you think it was like they at that point they're like, yeah, this is good, totally going to work out. Don't worry about it.
Do you think he's her real uncle, or is that just like his nickname because he's like a family friend?
I thought he was her dad.
Well, her dad was talking to the admiral,
and then she said she called him uncle.
Yeah, yeah, she referred to him. I think that was just uncle through.
So do you think how far along in the plot in the secret bridge crew plot to save Captain Freeman, how long do you think they were at the beginning of the episode? Do you think they basically had it solved at the beginning of the episode?
It was probably in motion.
There's not a lot of textual evidence, but I would presume that they were actually starting all that stuff before they even arrested her.
Right.
I think they were like, okay, we have to arrest her. We're shady. That's suspicious. Why would she bomb the Pac-Led planet? That doesn't make sense. Let's go ahead and arrest her to distract them, and then
it didn't take long
do
for
our
them
secret stuff.
to take that that spaceship ride and go to the Cerritos and take it over. That wasn't, that was not much time at all.
It probably took them all of an hour though. They transport.
It was probably
over there,
like an hour. Yeah.
Transport over. They don't have to take a plane there or nothing. It was funny about that line with the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah,
because it's true. It's like there's no driving,
anymore.
but it's awesome. That big stupid orange thing or whatever she said.
People like it. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it too. I drove over that.
Yeah,
once.
I can imagine keeping that.
It's a very impressive bridge.
In the Picard show, they have like a bunch of solar panels. Or something.
Yeah. I think a few shows have shown that. Even like his Discovery also has San Francisco is like solid throughout the ages. They're like, we're gonna keep this fucking bridge.
So the bridge crew. Mariner was pissed that the bridge crew didn't tell him what was going on. And Alonzo was basically like, Admiral Freeman goes,
Alonzo.
I'm first name basis with this guy.
It's a nice name.
Captain Freeman is basically like, I did tell you from the beginning, but that's not really fair because of course she had reason not to believe that anything was going on, but it's funny. It's funny.
Well, you could argue.
I laughed.
You could argue.
One could.
If one were want to.
I know somebody who would.
And if one were want to, you could argue that the sort of the message of the show is that as much as we might admire the iconoclast, the people who go against the system and all that, that is not always the sensible thing to do. And that sometimes you've got a really good system. And one thing that a lot of people like about this show is that they are really leaning into the idea that Starfleet's not perfect, but overall, it's pretty solid. So most of the things we're seeing, like we see that a little bit with at the end of the episode when those security guys come in, they're like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we're helping masturbate these space jellies." And they're like, "Oh, that's great." You know, it's like that classic. And they've done that a bunch of times on Lower Decks where they make you think it's going to be, you expect the fucked up, like evil response. And they're like, "Oh, it's so awesome. You love science. That's great."
Yeah. Do you think they were talking about the tentacles? Do you think that was some kind of like sideways reference to tentacle porn or something?
You mean you're referring to tentai, which is a subset of hentai?
If that's what it's called, sure.
Do you know what
I feel like you're setting me up to tell me something. I'm
not setting you up for nothing. I'm just dropping some.
I feel like I'm being led along.
Knowledge.
I feel like I'm being led along. Okay, tentai.
I'm not advocating for any of these forms of art, nor am I advocating against them. I'm just describing what I've stumbled across on the internet in purely innocent circumstances.
Well,
you have hentai, and one subcategory of hentai is tentai, which is tentacle-related hentai, and a subset of tentai
is 20-tai.
No, but good.
That's
show.
only if you're in a base 10 system.
A subset is called consentacles, and consentacles arose because much of the tentai was of a sexually violent nature,
right?
And for the obvious reasons that many people would find that
not cool.
Many people would find that offensive, but still yet be interested in tentacle-based pornography.
Well, I would imagine
so as long as everybody's having a good time.
So consentacles is the same as tentai, except the girls are smiling.
Okay. That means they're consenting.
I mean, that's quite literally, that's the deal. Again, not asserting judgments one way or the other.
Well, I mean, my first introduction to that tentacle porn stuff is I remember being with my brother when I was like 9 or 10 years old and renting some anime at the video store and not really knowing what to expect. I was like, what's going on here? Like, and then I was like, that was weird. And then I later realized, well, this is like a thing, you know, there's a whole thing. And I imagine, I imagine it must be because they have to blur out the genitalia. And so the tentacles were just supposed to be
doesn't count as a penis.
Doesn't count as a penis. And while they're at it, make them big and weird and just ridiculous just to, for some other fantasy.
Not to diverge too much from our primary topic of conversation, which is
not tentacle porn,
which is Lower Decks. But for those who are interested in the artistic and historical background of this whole genre, there is art going back at least, I think, to the 1800s, wood carvings.
Well, I didn't know that.
Women making love to octopus type creatures.
I didn't know that.
So there's a long history in Japanese art related to this particular concept.
Well, I didn't know that. And the reason I brought it up, though, is do you think that they were making some kind of, sideways reference to tentacle porn?
I do not. In this case,
because
I do not.
They were talking about being covered in gamete or whatever, which was basically that gamete means something.
This just took on such a different flavor than tentai usually takes on. So this was more. A gamete is a reproductive cell of an animal or plant. So they took the cells and they were moving the cells around, but they were covered in gamete goo, which was supposed to be, and then there was tentacles all zapping them. So it just seemed very it was very. And they said it was a breeding ground, which was funny because like when Mariner and Boimler were both like, "Ooh," and then but Tendi was like, "Oh, it's so wonderful. This is so beautiful." Yeah. But so that was it was a porn type part of the show. It is a valid interpretation.
I worry about you.
It's not the interpretation I took away from this scene.
Well, am I the alone here? That it
I just thought reference. It was a funny
Jesse's
worried.
Jesse's worried here because I'm watching.
No, I'm just kidding.
Lower Decks thinking about tentacle porn.
No, I'm just playing.
I didn't choose to watch tentacle porn.
I didn't choose to.
I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know that was going to happen.
I learned it from you.
Yeah. Then I couldn't stop watching it.
Saw you do it.
All right. How about this? Let's talk at least briefly about the whole staying true to the premise of this show. We've already touched on this a lot, but the idea that the whole resolution to this plot accentuates the fact that these are the lower deckers. These are the junior officers. This is the whole gag of the show.
Not to be mistaken with the upper decker gag. I've made that joke before. But new listeners haven't heard
listeners will not have heard the upper decker joke. And if you don't know what upper decker is, look it up on the internet.
And if you're not a new
then
listener,
you might think it's funny and you might think it's not.
Yes.
you might just be like, why would you do that?
They're like, I'm not looking that up. I'm looking up consentacles. Consentacles is a very clever
sounds
name.
more like
It's a very clever name for a genre of
It's like
questionable
It's like
pornography.
2 or 3 levels derived from something. Yeah.
Yeah. The world is a colorful place.
What's the integral of consentacles? Well, tentacles would be 1.
Yeah,
But there might be
get out of here with this math.
There might
Or
be
integer.
more.
I was told there would be no math. Okay, but this is clearly the joke. Like the joke of the episode is
Tentacle porn.
it's that they have this
Dude.
Captain Bateman with his crack team of, there's that one officer who's got the bleached white Steve Martin hair, and I mean
They're wearing like their action Starfleet outfits.
they're ninja outfits.
Ninja outfits.
And then of course, as mentioned earlier, Tuvok and his what was it? His invasive interrogation. The look on Tuvok's face was great.
Yeah, it was.
It was straight up like old school Tuvok. Like I'm fucking melding with your mind, motherfucker.
I think that guy you were talking about is Captain Morgan Bateson.
Yes,
think that was,
Captain Bateson.
Yeah.
He was from Cause and Effect, which episode was that? 74?
we talked about
79? I think it was. I want to say
69,
I wanna say
dude.
74.
That was from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes, it was.
I don't just start saying that for no reason.
You do.
Called me out.
Okay, so yes, obviously this was the joke, but I was somewhat surprised in how many people on the old internet that I saw they were saying, "Oh, I love this episode; it was great," but it was resolved too quickly.
Yeah. I mean,
That threw me off because it was like I get where they're coming from, but also that's the joke.
right. So, I mean, I can understand why, why someone might not get it or something, but at the same time, yeah, that was the whole joke.
It's clear, and also it's reminding us of what show we're watching, which is no matter, even though these are our protagonists, they're not the senior staff, so we're not getting to see all the actual stuff that's going on, and it's not resetting the characters or anything like that. It's sort of resetting us and resituating us to remind us for the season kind of coming up ahead that it doesn't matter how talented, clever, and all that stuff that these people are. They still have a limited access to what's going on because of the position they are in the hierarchy.
Right. So, to clarify what I said about that, is about people, if you missed a joke, that's fine to me. I'm not speaking for Jesse or Patrick, but if you go on the internet and say, I didn't get the joke, I'm like, fair enough, explain it. But if you go on the internet starting to rage about how stupid it is and that and get get all angry about it or like, it's a stupid ending because I didn't. If you get all like ready to be all upset about the ending, like maybe put on the brakes a little bit and realize maybe there was a joke you just didn't get.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't have
That's
to
fine. You don't
jump
have to-
on the I hate lower decks bandwagon.
Yeah, so it's okay to not get jokes. Just try to put on the brakes. Maybe you didn't get the joke, and that's okay. Just don't. It doesn't mean you have to strike back. With
This
the
is
evil.
great because for once I'm not going to be the one accused of being condescending, or I'm not the sole one accused because it's okay. It's okay not to get jokes.
Your feelings.
It's okay
not
that
to
you're
get jokes.
fucking stupid.
Just take
Now-
it easy. It's okay.
Now, if that's the interpretation you want to have, but I do not see things your way.
As I said, humans are perceptual species.
Perceptual.
And there's going to be a certain amount of data error in the transmission.
Well, what if there was a data, a lore, and an error?
What if?
I am error.
One other thing that came up in these conversations is, again, a lot of these people were saying they enjoyed the episode. They were just sort of complaining that in their view it ended too quickly. So they're not getting the joke. Other people or
a short show.
Sometimes it was a little overlap. A lot of people were saying like this was a Deus Ex Machina ending. And I take a little issue with that. Right. So the Deus Ex Machina is a literary term going back to like ancient Greek plays and stuff. And it's the idea, and it's still used today. It's the idea of when the resolution to the plot, like back in the day, it was because a character would come down and say there's Zeus and they solve the problem or whatever.
It's similar to the idea of a turducken, or no, it's a boffo. What are those things?
MacGuffin.
MacGuffin.
Well, a MacGuffin is slightly
it's different. I'm saying
Turducken.
that's what I was saying.
Delicious.
It's not the same as a MacGuffin, but
it's a literary term.
It's
that,
similar.
MacGuffin doesn't sound quite as delicious as a turducken.
And the main 2 points I wanted to make about this whole accusation that this is Deus Ex Machina is point number one. Deus Ex Machina is often used in the pejorative, and it can be a critique, but it's not by definition. In fact, especially in comedy, a Deus Ex Machina can add layers to the satire and stuff like that, right? You see that in like The Life of Brian, when all of a sudden an alien spaceship comes out. It's not quite Deus Ex Machina, but it's something that comes out of the blue that wasn't previously set up,
right.
and somehow propels the plot, or more often than not resolves the plot. That's a Deus Ex Machina.
Oh yeah, that was really weird.
I mean,
that's
even like a parody of Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah,
and whatever.
And so point number one is it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it's exactly the right thing to do to make the joke land or to make the point you're trying to make. But I also just don't think this counts as Deus Ex Machina, partly because they were setting up. People were kept telling Mariner, hey, why don't you just wait to see what happens? She's on trial. There's a whole, the court system and stuff. Her dad was saying it. Tendi and the others were implying it. And so there's a certain amount of setup there. Even for the space jellies, they mentioned them at the beginning of the episode.
That's right, yeah.
The Verrugrament.
They were Chekhov's space juice.
The Federation News Network.
Yes.
Well, I liked how that part, the incandescent extremophiles. I like how they wove that together, because it kind of moved the plot, but I thought you have to have something that moves the plot, right? Yeah. It's just a matter.
I mean, you gotta.
It's just a matter if it feels.
It's gotta move, baby.
If it feels artificial or not. I don't think this did. So the swarm was introduced kind of casually as in lighter news, and it's like, I will hear about them later. They prevent them from transporting
in lighter news.
So we hear separately about
they light up.
We hear about the Verrugrament and the historical Bozeman, and they weave together because the Verrugrament prevents them from transporting, but then it's assisted by the replica Phoenix at the Bozeman, which since they couldn't...
At the Bozeman, you mean in Bozeman?
In Bozeman, yeah, sorry.
At Bozeman,
yes, at Bozeman,
Montana.
Fine, by Bozeman.
Historic Bozeman.
At the Bozeman, Montana
I went
hotel.
to Kalispell, Montana once. So went hiking in the Glacier National Park.
So they couldn't transport because of the Verrugrament.
They got that Zephram Cochrane Hollow.
So they were talking separately about the Verrugrament, and they were talking about Bozeman, and then
Verrugramen? Veruca salt?
No.
Gormagander?
Jesus Christ.
Gormagander.
Yeah. What are you fucking...
Gormagander.
It's
Gorma-fucking-gander.
It's Verrugrament.
Farfig nougat.
So they separately bring up this idea of the Verrugrament, and they bring up this idea of going to Bozeman, and then the Verrugrament prevents them from transporting.
Bozeman.
And so they were like, it prevents us from transporting. But how about this replica Phoenix from Bozeman, which we mentioned earlier in the episode, which they hijacked.
There's really a place called Bozeman, isn't that a funny
almost done. I'm almost done. I'm almost done here. I'm almost done.
It's like, do you live in Bozeman or D's nuts?
Hey guys, I'm almost done with my fucking point. And so it allowed them to hijack
D's
it.
nuts, North Dakota.
So I'm going to start over again.
All right,
the Verrugrament was introduced separately from Bozeman. And so the Verrugrament prevented them from transporting, which meant they had to go to Bozeman, which they already mentioned, to ride the replica Phoenix up into the sky. And then the Verrugrament uses Cerritos to breed on, and then the science guys are coming after, or then the security comes after, and they're like, no, we're going to study the Verrugrament because we're scientists. So everything wove together to allow them to keep things going along. And I think I don't know if that's technically artificially, if that's Deus Ex Machina. I don't know what is.
No,
but
it's not. What you've described
natural.
is exactly not because they've mentioned it and they weaved it all together.
Yeah,
it did not come out of nowhere.
Yeah, if it was like these two separate things that wove together and felt like a natural movement content of the episode.
No lightning bolts.
Because they're good, right? It's good. They're good writers. This was written by Chris Kula. Although my understanding is how most of these writing rooms work is you'll have somebody who's the author of record, but that the whole room's working on breaking the story, coming up with huge chunks of it, revising the scripts and stuff. But Chris Kula was the writer here. Jason Zurich was the director, and he also directed the season 2 finale, First Contact. So he got to continue the story that he started.
Record. That's my favorite book. He was the author of it. The author of Record.
I get this. This is a joke.
Jesse, Record.
Yeah.
He was the author of Record, and I said Record is my favorite book.
Yeah.
That's my favorite book.
Yeah.
There's this great drunk history where this guy's all talking. It has he's talking about this guy who accidentally kills this woman's husband, and then he starts a book club with the woman, and he's all like, "That's my favorite book," and they're all acting all goony because they're drunk, and then they're all like, you like reading,
what
dude?
What book is it?
I think it's Moby Dick or something. And it's
you
like Moby Dick? That's my favorite book. And then I'll have to find the
Bozeman piece.
I enjoyed that anecdote.
I would have made more sense if I had which episode it was, but
it's more charming.
I think Bob Odenkirk was in it, but he wasn't one of the narrators.
Yeah, Triple's his best. The one other thing I wanted to mention about this whole two-parter business is there were also people who argued that wouldn't it have been better to draw out this whole situation with Captain Freeman over a longer period. Some people even said it should be like the whole season or something. This is an episodic show.
Yeah, it's not a Lower Decks thing to do.
They wouldn't. Changing it at this point, I think most people could have predicted they would have largely resolved, if not entirely resolved, the Captain Freeman situation by the end of this episode, which it goes right in line with previous Star Treks, right? Best of both worlds, everything's fine. I know you have family afterwards, but after family, okay, then everything's largely fine. You got to wrap things up and continue them. They've got Lower Decks has mastered this whole weaving in the season-long arcs and the character stuff, but fundamentally, you can pop on any episode at any time and enjoy it.
You can't spell function without fun.
Yeah, or funeral.
Or funk.
Funeral is another one. Funnel cake. I had some funnel cake yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Oh, it was when Bob Odenkirk...
I had it at the swimming pool.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. It was the episode was
That's a wild swimming pool.
We can go back to that discussion in a second.
Which discussion?
The one you were talking about, the funnel cake discussion?
I think it was largely concluded. It was just an anecdote about having funnel cake.
That's about all you can do with funnel cake.
You can just have it.
So it was an episode where Bob Odenkirk was playing W.C. Minor, who was like, and it was recited by this guy named Doug Jones, not the Doug Jones from Star Trek, but this other guy, Doug Jones. And W.C. Minor came
Are you talking about the senator, the ex-senator from Alabama?
How could there be more than one Doug Jones?
I know, there's a whole... Right, it's crazy.
Who are all these Doug Joneses?
An interesting and unique sounding name.
I think W.C. Minor was like, he's the one who's responsible for all those sentences. He's just responsible for all those sentences in the dictionary, like where he uses things in a sentence. I think he made a bunch of those. He was an army surgeon, a psychiatric hospital patient, a lexicographical. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But that was
it does not matter.
But I'm just saying. Well, you all were silent. W.C. Minor.
Who's W.C. Minor?
He's the guy. I think he's the guy back in the 1800s or 1700s or something. I don't know. And like
that's too long ago.
When they were making the dictionary, when that dude made the dictionary, he was
Webster.
You talking about Webster?
He was in jail. W.C. Minor was in jail and was mailing in all the sentences.
Oh, was he the crazy guy? No, there was an insane guy who was like in an insane asylum.
Yeah.
Was that
guy.
him?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that's a good story. People should check that out.
Yeah,
Doug Jones. I know what that is.
Bob Odenkirk is W.C. Minor. It's really funny.
I would like to see that.
Hilarious.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Doug Jones, not
despite
the Star
the
Trek
digression.
Yeah,
despite the digression.
This is my favorite book. This is the really funny part. I'm sorry. I know I did that thing where I ruined the fun because I was like, who says that joke? Oh, let's keep it that way. You know that joke when somebody quotes a comedian, you're like, who says that? He's like, oh, that was Mitch Hedberg. Oh, let's keep it that way. Well, he can't because he's dead.
Oh, because people don't
he's dead.
Recounting another person's joke. I got you.
Mitch
that's kind of a
dead.
dick thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I'm really embarrassed about myself for the last 5 minutes.
How about we do this?
Podcasting.
How about we do this? How about
take a break?
Well, right before taking a break, let's first go over because I know we jump around here, but we've covered some of those kind of key points. We've given the audience a few semi-cogent points that they can take home with themselves. You can
Put them in your pocket.
They can go to the office and they can talk to their friends and be like, oh,
Pocket points.
Did you ever think about how Star Trek two-parters are like this? And then they parodied and subverted that this
And
week.
they'll be like, no, I'd never heard of that, but that makes total sense. You're so smart for thinking of that.
So we've done that. We're good there.
What is this Star Trek you guys keep talking about?
really?
What we can now do is talk about some of those, the random key points.
Now do?
Any key things that jumped out at you. Boimler being
This is not nooks and crannies or odds and ends.
Not odds and ends. No nooks and crannies. Just in general, just a couple things that I that are more than a nod, more than an end, but not quite worthy of their own discussion item. Although maybe this one is, because I was very much amused and sort of curious about Boimler not realizing or not responding to any of these beautiful women hitting on him and wanting to have sex with him.
Yeah.
And the thing what I enjoyed most about it was humorous on its face, but I could not kind of entirely get if we were supposed to gather something from that, or if it's something we're going to pick up on later, or was this parroting? There's something in the back of my brain that makes me wonder if this is parroting some movie or something, but I can't place it.
Well,
just this whole like being like, oh, okay, I'm completely blasé around these women who are throwing themselves.
He's
in
just
there.
bored with everything.
It does make me think of the Holy Grail when they're all trying to have sex with. It was Lancelot, wasn't it? When he right there, it was similar to
that castle.
Yeah, except in that case, he wanted to have sex with them.
That is interesting because it seems like a Boimler thing to do, but at the same time, it was done very it felt like it was done very intentionally or something.
Yeah, no, it was. There was intention and there was an intentionality to it,
right?
And
deliberately,
and it didn't connect with any of the other plot points. So I don't know if it was going to connect to something in the future, or if they just played it as a gag, or if they were just doing that to accentuate the fact that Boimler is Starfleet through and through. He does not like it's similar to Picard. Sometimes people would say, "Oh, Picard has this great vineyard and winery. Why don't you just hang out there?" Like he eventually does, right? Mm-hmm. Boimler. My best guess is, if there's nothing else that comes out of this in the future, my best guess is it's merely to present how important traveling around in space and being in Starfleet is to Boimler, that he's bored out of his mind working in this beautiful vineyard atmosphere surrounded by potential partners
Genevieve
that would like to bone him.
Genevieve, Mandalina, and Leanne.
And one of them looked like the Raisin Box girl.
Yeah, the first one.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
The one with a bonnet.
Yeah, she's wearing the same hat.
Well, that's what's funny too, is it's a vineyard, but it's for making raisins.
Raisins.
So it's like the most.
Drying
It's like a
them out.
bummer. It's like a bummer vineyard.
But he's like still wearing that hat, and it looks like Picard, and
right. So
yeah, he's wearing the total Picard outfit. Family.
So that floating winery watering machine. There was a couple of those big mamma jammas all like floating around. Was that from specifically?
Picard had those.
Picard had those.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah.
Which was that in TNG, or was that in like a?
No, that was in.
was that Picard?
In Picard, the
It
show.
was-
It
Picard.
looks a
Yeah,
lot
they
like
actually referenced
Picard's
Picard.
Vineyard, yeah.
Right. Those things look like some ominous Matrix shit.
I know,
Like they're
they
collecting
really do.
bodies or something. But they're just. At first, I thought they were collecting grapes, but they're just watering. It's just supplying life. But yeah.
So that's
she
interesting.
talks about the privacy of the Pickery shed.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
They have some great lines, and they're really good with the grammar. Like at one point when Rutherford was saying, everything will be fine once Captain Freeman is proved innocent, instead of the more common but often incorrect proven innocent.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that because I'm stupid.
You're stupid.
I'm stupid.
I like the idea that space dock is you. There's lots of space docks. Like
Right.
we always
And
only
there's one just out in the middle of space somewhere.
We only ever see one at a time in a given movie, but clearly they don't.
Yeah.
They've got tons of ships. They don't
You're
just
right.
got the one space dock frame.
They have to memorize. Rutherford memorized a 19-digit orbital coordinate for like that particular space dock. Or
That
something.
guy's annoyed.
But yeah, that's
He's such annoyed.
space dock, dry dock.
He's a number annoyed.
That reminded me of in past episode, Boimler was talking about doing some wet work, and Mariner was all
wet work. Yeah.
I was talking about wet
Don't call
work.
it wet work.
yeah.
Don't let the door hit you where the Big Bang splits you. Ouch!
That was.
That was Bobby Moynihan playing Danny.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's great.
Although it's weird because the
Moynihan.
credits online are all confused. Some people say that Bobby Moynihan played Gavin, which it didn't sound like Bobby Moynihan, but this was clearly to me sounded like Bobby Moynihan. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. But
Right,
some of
Gavin the botanist.
some of them have it incorrect. But
Captain Gavin.
the whole Denny with the old transporter chief scene was fun. And this is more of an Easter egg, but Jorg Hillebrand, he's that fella on Twitter who does super deep dive analyses into like frame by frame analysis of every Star Trek show.
Wow.
Right now he's going through TNG, but he always does the new shows when they come out. And he noticed that like it's basically like one frame when they enter that transporter place with Denny. He's reading a book called Emery Erickson, a memoir, and Emery Erickson is on an episode of Star Trek Enterprise where he plays a scientist he's like a transporter scientist, and he's one of the groundbreaking scientists who makes it possible to transport people and shit early on. So what's his name? A deep dive. Emery Erickson.
Emery Erickson is what makes space docking possible.
No, transporter.
Emery Erickson is what makes transporting possible, much like the flux capacitor in time travel.
You're mixing your metaphors.
No, I'm not.
Emery Erickson.
I don't think I was actually mixing metaphors.
Or you're mixing your references.
Well, I did that on purpose. That was the joke.
No, I understand you did it on purpose, and I understand it was structurally a joke.
Words, dolphin. Why did the words dolphin? Because he did it on purpose.
All right. Well,
why did the thing?
Toboggan.
Why did the thing dolphin thing? Because he did it on porpoise. Where's the joke in there? There's a joke in there.
What other things did you think stood out about this episode? What things popped out at you?
When you talk about dolphins and then you say do it on porpoise, that's a joke. That's a joke.
Yeah, or white hot.
Was it white?
Yeah,
Did
it was
white?
Yeah, because it's Ketracel White is the drug, and so it was Ketracel White Hot.
I think it just did a visual thing where it was already the bottle was red, so it tricked my.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, I see.
But I understood the white part of it.
We're not gonna reference my awesome joke in the making, but that's fine. We can keep on moving.
What did you think
He's
about?
He's not even gonna fucking say anything.
What did you think about?
He's not gonna give that to me.
The music cues from First Contact; those were pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Like when they got to Bozeman, and then there were a couple others here and there, like when they were waiting in line. You know, that whole like First Contact music. You guys are the musicians. I'm not the musician.
Well,
I'm still thinking about my joke.
Where they blast off and they start playing the step.
Well, that is
how much did that cost to license that? The Magic Carpet Ride.
That's a very widely used song.
Here's the deal. I guarantee it costs less than when they licensed it for First Contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it did.
Well, how much do you think it cost to license that Sabotage by the Beastie Boys in new
$15,000.
Probably more
beyond Star Trek.
Probably more than a Steppenwolf.
It was $20 and one of those Bed Bath and Beyond coupons.
It would be a bleak future indeed if all you had to listen to was Steppenwolf after World War III.
Why didn't they put?
Let's rock and roll, and you had to put Steppenwolf.
The bar with the one song.
I forget what the one song was. Was it that song?
I don't think so. I think it was a more generic one that just sort of kept playing over and over in the background.
Why?
I have to revisit.
Why wasn't there dolphins in cetacean ops? Because they did it on porpoise.
What did they do on porpoise?
They did it on. Okay, never. Okay, I'll move. Okay. Patrick still won't.
It was really cool that James Cromwell reprised
I'm sorry,
his
it's driving
role.
me crazy that you won't even acknowledge it. I'll drop it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right, it's the same.
I'm not trying.
Zephram Cochrane
I'm not trying to do this to put the show to a halt. It's actually giving me like a tick.
And James Cromwell's quite old.
Is it because you're doing it on porpoise?
He's quite old at this stage. So I'm glad they were able to get him. I know he's still acting, but but that was.
But he's always
cool.
been even on Enterprise. He was Zephram Cochrane. He was
he's always popping up.
He's been Zephram Cochrane for like 30 years. Or
doing all sorts of rad stuff. Stealing the ship, just in general, the plot of Stealing the Ship is very similar to Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, which informed the marketing for this whole season. All the marketing was using Star Trek 3 style imagery and fonts and things like that. To your planet, welcome. That's a line from Star Trek 3.
So were you talking about references to other Star Trek? Is that what we're doing? Are we doing Easter eggs right
No,
now?
I was just no. It's Easter egg-ish. We'll move on to proper Easter eggs after the break.
Well,
but I was just any other just things that jumped out at you like a frog.
I
I like the
like
Vulcan,
a Ferengi frog.
the Vulcan spaceship, and it was a slide.
That was good.
But the gap.
They're all eating churros.
Yeah, the
Oh, yeah,
churros,
it was
and
churros.
then they were not allowed to bring their food on there, so they're like stuffing churros down their mouth.
And they even have the video to help explain why, like, you're waiting in line, and to make the customers waiting in line not bitter. They have the little James Cromwell's all like, "I'm just fixing some stuff, almost
You're
ready
right.
to go."
Right.
Yeah, that was some Disney business.
They were.
Type of stuff you see at the old amusement park.
Boimler was saying something about this ride is suitable for people who are 100 centimeters tall, and for some reason that meant he wasn't sure that they could take control of the ship. I don't understand that connection.
I think he wasn't sure about how capable the ship was necessarily. Like, how capable would you need to make something that's just for kids to ride up and down?
I guess that
I
makes
don't
sense.
know.
No,
I don't know.
that sounds reasonable.
How far did that ride go? Like, did it go out to
It
fucking
went up and
space?
up and up.
Went to a dry dock.
Uranus?
It went up higher than the Blue Origin
Oh.
rocket. That's for sure. Catch my meaning. Penis shaped
That's a good question though, because they pressed the big red button to sort of steal his ship. Gavin guy we already mentioned, but it was funny on his exit from what I thought was going to be his exit from the episode when he says when he goes
This isn't the last you heard from me.
he goes, this won't be the last you heard of me, and then he gets cut off because the door shuts, and it's like to me the joke is like we did hear the last of him. He just got cut off, but then we do hear him again at the end of the episode. He's refers to himself as Captain Gavin.
Well, the other joke with that is that it's that typical. We might have, if you've been to amusement parks, you might have experienced this. The person who's super nervous and weird and all obnoxious about going on the ride, but then once they go on the ride, then they become all like hardcore about the ride.
Right. Yeah.
I'm on a trek amongst the stars.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. How about we take another break, and then we'll close down the conversation, finish up any odds and ends, loopholes, Easter eggs, all that.
Blarble,
jazz.
blarble.
All right. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're back for the last break of the show, or the last segment of the show, whichever terminology suits you best.
You know, so every show.
Every show?
Every single show.
So you're talking like Empty Nest, Sledgehammer, Time Track.
You only brought up
Says
Sledgehammer because
Sledgehammer.
I brought up Sledgehammer.
Yes.
Highlander.
Highlander.
Sci-fi or not.
Highlander, the legend continues.
Sci-fi or not, every single show either implies or outright states that World War III is going to happen sometime in the 21st century.
So does that mean it's going to happen?
That's a lot. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, they said it in this episode,
Well, we know it in the Star Trek universe.
but it's always.
That's forever.
I think
they
that's
talk
been
about
established
the World
that,
War,
like, in the not too distant future, right after all the viewers die, there'll be a World War III.
Well, Deep Space Nine did come up with the idea of the what do you call it? You know, those zones where you put all the homeless people. They came up with that idea in like 1995,
Oh, right. Yeah.
6, and now in Florida they're like, we're going to put all the homeless people on an island.
Are they refugee camps? Would you call it that?
No, they had a different name, and I'm forgetting it right now.
concentration camps.
They were concentration camps, but I forget the term. We did discuss that 2-part episode,
Yeah.
and by the
Yeah,
way,
we
Deep
did.
Space Nine, more often than not, did not, I think, fall. They didn't. Their second episodes of 2-parters were often quite good, or at least better than TNG, Voyager, Enterprise. Some of those giants.
I like when they were in the
Subjective opinion, of course.
when they were in Bozeman's restaurant, Bozeman Park. When they're in Bozeman Park, I like when Tendi goes, when she's all like saying, "Can I try?" It would be illogical not to.
Yes,
that was
yeah.
that was funny.
Yeah.
That's like that's like kid logic or something. You know, it's
It was
like
really
saying,
cute.
It's like, let me go on the Vulcan ship. It'd be
Yeah.
illogical if I didn't go. So I was tickled by that.
Okay, so how about this? To close down the conversation, let's just dive fully head on into what Easter eggs, whatever Easter eggs we're interested in talking about. Again, we're not going to cover all of them. There's places online to get all of the Easter eggs. My favorite one probably was the LQ, the Chiron at the bottom of the screen that had LQ Sonny Clemens, demonstrating that he's now famous, right? Because we discussed that in the Neutral Zone. That was episode 74. So 74 of the podcast, the Neutral Zone.
Oh shit.
Sonny Clemens, because they had the
I was
news
like,
crawl.
who's this Clemens guy?
Yeah, they had the news crawl that said like a bunch of
Right.
teenagers were injured at the Sonny Clemens concert.
Oh,
and in the
shit.
Neutral Zone, he has that great line where I think he's talking to Data, and Data's like, "What are you going to do now that you're in the future?" And he's like, "Well, nobody knows my songs, so I can just like be famous again." And he's like, "I'll be even more famous than I ever was." And this is a great follow-up to that episode about 15 years later in universe, that now he's a famous country star, causing stampedes at Federation concerts.
Other notable headlines at the Federation News Network, on the ticker across the bottom, there was Admiral Jellicoe bans Zebulon sisters from active duty starships. There's the Buffalo Solar Knights eclipse London Kings in game 1 of Elds, which I'm not sure what Elds is. That's got to be some kind of thing.
ELDS.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of sport that
I'm
is.
not sure.
And then the other one was 6-year-old Zach Dorn, youngest to be crowned Stratagema Grandmaster.
And the Stratagema is from when Data was playing as an adult Zach Dorn to a draw in Peak Performance, where Data has that great scene where Data's getting all bitter because this guy keeps beating him at this stratagem game, and then Data figures out.
Then he beats his butt or whatever.
No, he just fights him to a draw, and then the guy gets fed up and quits.
No, but that was the line at the end, is like, I beat his butt or something.
No, he said, I busted him.
I busted him up.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
I beefed on his ass.
Yeah, exactly. There was in the opening credits, there is now featured a crystalline entity.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
They just add that
They
in
just
there.
added it into the back.
I love this idea that just the opening credits are just getting busy. That battle scene just gets more and more people added into it as the season goes along.
But the Cerritos is still like running away from the fight. So,
Rutherford wearing a Jake Sisko style shirt.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
It looked like two crazy sweaters.
No,
that's right.
So Rutherford was wearing a straight up actual Jake Sisko shirt.
Okay, that's what that was.
The pattern was a little down res because it's animated, but it was the exact shirt that Jake Sisko wore.
He was worried it wasn't dressy enough because it wasn't asymmetrical enough.
Yeah. Boimler, but I'm not seeing
vest.
I'm not seeing people talk about this on the internet because everyone's talking about Rutherford and his Jake Sisko thing. Boimler was wearing like a Benjamin Sisko or maybe even Joseph Sisko style vest. You know, it's a little bit more subdued, but it's got the crazy patterns on it and stuff too.
Tendi and Mariner are dressed like normal people.
Yes, just sort of
regular outfits.
Out and about people.
Well, so when they showed all the bridge crew and the whole courtroom people, they showed a Pakled. I guess they call it a queen. I don't know what they call the Pakled leader.
Or is that the Empress or something?
Empress or whatever.
Because in First Contact, they kept having like different ones, like that king.
Yeah,
queen,
right, with the different
emperor.
hats. Actually, I wanted to mention that. So this episode is I was wondering about sort of what led up to this episode. Well, I mean, I know what led up to the episode, but I was just thinking about...
You've been watching TV.
I've been watching TV. So basically, I was thinking about all the episodes where the Pakleds were mentioned up until this. Season 1, episode 10 was the season finale of the first season, which that's when we are introduced to the Pakleds, where they're aggressive. We don't really know why. Season 2, episode 2, they're causing a ruckus. That's when we see the Titan and Riker, and they're causing a ruckus because they're looking for Veruvian ore, but we're not sure why, but they sort of are like, well, you can make it explodey if you want. It's like, what are they doing? Season 2, episode 6, the Pakleds hold the bridge crew hostage, and then Rumdar is like being shady spy on the Cerritos, so they're trying to collect intel. Season 2,
Spy Humongous.
that was season 2, episode 9. Was that the Spy Humongous? No, that was one I just mentioned was the Spy Humongous. Season 2, episode 9 was when they showed the different lower decks from the Vulcan ship and the Klingon ship. So Captain Dorg of the Klingon...
3 ships.
Wedge
So Captain Dorg of the
Bozeman.
Captain Dorg, that's when we find out Captain Dorg from the...
Captain Dorg
from the Klingon ship
from Bozeman.
He made a deal with the Pakleds where he was giving them weapons and info to distract the Federation. So he basically sent fucking Pakleds after the wreck house, so they were going to quietly take over the Emperor seats, which later they were referred to as an extremist group. Season 2, episode 10, of course, that's when she gets accused of bombing the Pakled planet. Now, what's interesting is, well, many things are interesting in life, but another point that I found worth mentioning is that, so season 2, episode 9, Captain Dorg, he talks about like how he sent the he sent the Pakleds out so that the impression we're getting is like the whole point of the Pakleds doing this is so the Klingons can take over. No, that was just a side action.
Right, yeah.
The Pakleds wanted to get a better planet so they could get more resources. So it's like the Klingon. There's a Klingon.
It's such a Pakled thing to do. We just blow our own shit up.
Yeah, right. And so originally when I was thinking like, oh, the Klingons are using the Packlids as puppets to get what they want. It's like, no, they were just being opportunistic for something the Packlids were already doing. Yeah. And the big reveal in this episode was that the Packlids bombed their own planet, but that wasn't really a reveal because we kind of already suspected like
I think
that was happening.
I think where it's fun is that I think the default suspicion was that they blew up their planet by accident.
Yeah, right.
Because they're stupid.
Right.
Finding out that they did it on purpose as some sort of complicated criminal scheme is funnier. Now, they don't address it in this episode, but the thing is in at least in a certain way, I bet you they're going to get their wish because their planet is destroyed. Starfleet is going to help them. Right? Presumably, right? Starfleet's not going to just be like,
that's what they do.
You're fucked, right? So they're going to help them. Maybe they're not going to get to like the planet of their choice, but I bet Starfleet will help resettle them in some fashion or another. So.
Yeah, because they're Starfleet. But I was mentioning that because we're talking about the Paklid leader. Then this was the group of coming out of the courthouse. There was that guy that we've seen. He has no hair and he's got that like constant 5 o'clock shadow thing going on. He was a Starfleet officer. I know we've seen him in other episodes. He has no hair. He looked pretty big. He looked like Rob Schraub. If you ever
Rob Schraub.
He would play some voices on Rick and Morty, and he has this comic book that he made called Scud. But there's that guy. I don't know what his job is. But then there was Tuvok. Then we see Captain Freeman and then Kelsey Grammer's character, who I don't remember.
Captain Bateman.
But for some reason, Ransom, Shax, and Ta'ana are all wearing cool outfits. Shax and Ta'ana are wearing trench coats. Ransom is wearing some red jacket, and they're all wearing sunglasses for some reason.
And Ta'ana's wearing some Hollywood-style sunglasses, and her jacket is like all white.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of those outfits were supposed to be Easter eggs, especially Ransom's like red jacket. I felt like that must have been pulled.
I couldn't find anything online either about that, but it did look fun and cool. There was a reference for they were talking about this guy. This was the Federation. Federation. FNN. At the end, the FNN gave the final story was talking about this kid discovered Fermat's last theorem, which is A to the n plus B to the n does not equal C to the n for all values of n that are greater than 2. That's what that upside down A means. That's Fermat's last theorem. This is
by the way, the upside down A means for all. So that's what that theorem meant. So and it's apparently real thing. It's a real thing.
I know all about this.
But it's also from the Trek. It's an Easter egg from a Trek.
Well, it's a double. It's a double meta Easter egg and a super deep cut in some ways because Fermat's last theorem was something like 400 years ago, something like that, right?
Some crazy shit.
Fermat was an amateur mathematician. He did a lot of cool math stuff. And when he had died, they found in his notes just this scrap of paper that had the equation you said, and then next to it he wrote something like fantastic proof or something like that. And ever since then, no one had been able to come up with a proof of that final theorem. There's been lots of work on it. It seemed to be correct, but the mathematical proof was eluding people for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And that was in the episode, The Royale, is when Picard mentions it. He mentions that for 800 years, he was making some point about blah, 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 blah. One of them Picard points. But he was basically saying, like, isn't it wild that there's an amateur mathematician and the top minds have been studying his thing for 800 years and not come up with his original proof. And 6 years after that episode aired, Andrew Wiles over at Princeton produced a proof.
Boom.
Of Fermat's last theorem. So ever since then, there's been sort of this joke that it was one of those things in the future. They're like, oh, this will never happen. So we'll mention it in the future. And then it happens shortly afterwards.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty hilarious.
So that's part one of the joke, right? Well, that's the joke. There is a headcanon, Memory Alpha mentioned this. Other people in articles have mentioned this, that the headcanon you can use is to say that because Picard refers to the original proof, and no one's been able to determine how Fermat could have proven that theorem based on the type of mathematics, the level of sophistication, and the level of mathematical tools that he had he was able to access, right?
At his disposal?
At his disposal, yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. Not like in the kitchen where you put your hand down the disposal and it grinds your hand up. Not that kind of
That's
disposal.
A bad time.
Which, by the way, for our European listeners, I know that's not as common in Europe. It's awesome. It's a machine in your sink that has horrifying blades, and you just throw shit in your sink and it'll grind it up and it shoves it into the plumbing system.
Don't pour a ton of rice down there because you will fuck your shit up.
Oh yeah, rice will mess it up.
Yeah.
But But so that theorem was solved, or was proven, I should say. A proof was developed that is a well accepted proof by Andrew, I believe it was Andrew Wiles. But here's the thing: his proof requires super modern, mega sophisticated math and computers, right? So to develop the proof, he had to use stuff that was not available to Fermat. So you could use the headcanon to say that what Picard meant was they were looking for the original proof that doesn't require all that sophisticated math to actually demonstrate it.
You could,
but I think
who would take the time?
I think with this joke, they're basically saying like, "Oh, it's been discovered again by this kid, a 6-year-old." Well, the picture of the kid was funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
It looked all goofy.
By the way, Jesse, the rice thing, I meant cooked rice, but I bet dry rice would fuck it up good too. But if you put a ton of cooked rice in there, it can clog the whole system up.
Oh no!
What about beans?
I assumed it was cooked rice.
Okay, right on. Because you mentioned coffee.
Because why would you?
You mentioned coffee grounds. I guess those get those are different.
That's been cooked. They've been cooked.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know what you meant.
Okay.
So
how about this? Any odds and ends? Any final bits?
Well, I guess there. If you consider this an Easter egg, it's so ubiquitous in Star Trek, it may not even count. When Gary, the security guy, was playing 3D chess, but he was playing it on his computer.
Yeah, I know. That's a good call.
That was interesting.
That was funny. He was playing computer 3D chess.
Yeah, and it was funny when the Cerritos that it still had its hull gone, which I liked. The hull was still missing from, so they're consistent. But when it drove by, he just has this like sort of blank look on his face, and he like hits the. He's like,
no.
Yeah, and then he sort of like hits it. And that same Mariner did the same thing later that episode when Tendi was like freaking out. She was like, "Just do what I say and shut up." And like Tendi was, and then Mariner gave that same look and hit some kind of the comm button to talk to the security officer. So they did that gag twice, and I liked them both times. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. I
liked it when when we find out the Pac-Leds refer to their capital city as Big Strong City.
Yeah.
I thought that was. I also like the plants in Admiral Freeman's office. All his plants. Yeah. Not only did he have a shitload of fucking plants, but all the pots had little L-cars displays on it. It was like, which makes sense. You'd have future pots that help you take care of your plants, and you can have little digital readouts or something. It was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
I like when Boimler refers to the gamete goo as alien sploof. I thought that was. I like the word sploof.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Even though it was a small part of the episode, I did enjoy all the sexual juice exchange, gamete business. You know, gonads and gametes and zappy daps and tentacles.
Yeah,
I didn't get the same sort of sexual thrill out of it that Dan clearly did, but I did.
I hate when
but I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it from a comedic perspective.
I enjoyed it. I was wondering why we don't ever get swarms of incandescent verugament illuminating Earth today. I mean, apparently a couple hundred years from now it happens. Why doesn't it happen today?
You've given these
have we made first? Have we made first?
You've given them a lot of thought, sir.
Verugament. Maybe they made first contact with verugament, and so which is why they're like, why haven't we seen verugament here on Earth and see? And
you've posited a perfectly
made
rational.
It up, man.
No, well, I think
maybe it comes from somewhere.
Maybe it's because we made
first shipping lines, man. The ships is like ships bring rats around the world. They can bring verugament across the galaxy.
Or we just made or they're super advanced and we made first contact with them or something. There was that brief line that it was a throwaway line, but
a first contact with fun. Oh no, it wasn't that one. I thought it was going to be that one.
What?
When Zephyrin Copkin is like announcing, he's like, I hope you all can have a first contact with fun.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's good. Yeah. I was going to talk about how the judge, Amit Bin Tong, was one of those planet rights lunatics.
Planet's rights. I was like, I don't know how to interpret that. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I'm guessing it was some kind of like comment about state rights or something.
I think you could either take it. You could take it either direction. You could take it like, I'm a states' right, or you could take it be like a men's rights, or so. You know, they could take it a few different directions.
Right.
Or environmental rights. You know, whale rights.
Oh. I wanted to bring up
right whale is a type of whale.
It's a kind of a triangle, a right triangle.
A correct whale.
Roy. Oh, Roy.
Right.
I had a problem with this logic a little bit when Mariner steals the Cerritos to get to the Klingons because she was going to go to the Klingons and bring them back to make her mom innocent. her mom innocent.
Make her mom innocent.
Yeah, so they can't. So Boimler's like, I can't overwrite AutoNav, so instead I'll redefine home, which is clever. But I don't think the makers of AutoNav would overlook that workaround. First of all, and then after the next problem after that is for some reason AutoNav still thinks Earth's atmosphere is approaching. So like,
it's not using its sensors.
It's not using its sensors. Yeah, exactly.
When, like,
It didn't use its
display
sensors.
had like a picture of Earth and a picture of the Cerritos, and it was like. I'll just switch it from this picture to this picture.
Yeah,
it's just already part of the console.
And it was so easy to override. And like I said, even Google Maps knows when there's traffic on the road. So it knows when to slow down. I mean, Tesla cars, they know when to slow down most of the time. I don't know.
That's a good point.
But they didn't know in this. But of course, in the future, they don't have a unified networks.
I mean, one of the last things I guess
they just have a bunch of pads.
It is worth mentioning the very final conclusion to the episode in which we discover that Mariner is now going to be under the
purview. Is that the right word?
Purview of First Officer Ransom.
Yes,
Commander Ransom.
Which I like that sort of moved. That I like that it moved the series forward in that way.
It moves that relationship forward, and there's already been a twinge of sexual tension. They could go in that direction,
right?
But obviously, she's always competed with him both for attention from her mom, and he especially competes for attention with Mariner for when he wants attention from Captain Freeman. But it'll be very interesting to see how this works out, especially since previously they've shown the idea that he's got this outward view, this outward visage of a vapid sort of career-minded guy. But when it comes down to it, he saves the day. He takes the sacrifice, like that in the first season when he stabs Mariner in the foot. So he can go fight the guy. And then he's having so much fun fighting the guy, being the hero, and he's doing it all nice. He's not trying to kill the guy.
When you brought up, like, they already have some sexual tension, wasn't there a brief mention of like some audience members wanting Mariner and Boimler to like get together? And I don't even really know if that's
I'm sure that always comes up.
And I don't know if it's really like the kind of thing that I really care to discuss in depth, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. I'm whatever they decide to do is fine, but I'm good with their.
I agree.
How it is.
I think keeping it as I like seeing professional relationships maintained as professional relationships. It is fun to have romances here and there if it makes sense from the character perspective. I have enough faith in Mike McMahon and his team that if they chose to go down that road, I would know that they chose to go down it in an intentional and interesting way that we will in all likelihood find really
tasteful
good
way.
This is they're just so consistent here, right? It's not like every episode of Lower Decks is the best episode ever, but the baseline quality is just so high, and the baseline care they put into the decisions they make with where they send these characters. You don't maybe always agree with it, or maybe they could have done something a little different, but it's always in an honest and understandable direction based off of what we know. So they've earned that after these first two seasons and after this first episode of the third season.
Agreed. One of my last points, I guess, other than the butterscotch, what do you guys think of butterscotch?
I like butterscotch.
I'm cool with butterscotch.
I'm cool. But the funny thing about butterscotch is it can be an awesome syrupy, wonderful thing you put on ice cream or whatever you want to put it on.
Yeah.
But then it also comes in exactly those yellow wrappers. Those hard candies.
And you can sort of gnaw on it for a little bit.
Yeah, but it does feel like one of those old people things.
It is an old person
but
thing.
But like it's
That's why I like hanging out with old people.
Right.
They got nice candy.
Because you got Werther's Originals are good too.
There's Andes mints and there's one that's like after 8.
After 8's are good. Are the Andes mints the ones that are kind of powdery?
No, I'm thinking
when you bite into them. I don't like those. Those are more mealy.
No, the Andes mints are the chocolates that have that green layer in the middle.
Oh yeah,
of
those are good.
Squares.
But after 8's are good. Andes mints are good. Old people rock.
Good. Old people are cool.
Rock.
But dude, now the yellow butterscotch hard candy can be associated with old people. But what about when butterscotch is in its syrup form? Does that doesn't have
that would not be old people?
Yeah, so it's interesting.
That's
how that
a
works.
young person slinging ice cream at the local ice creamery.
Slinging yogurt.
Ice cream,
iced cream at the local iced creamery.
And
the parlor.
I wanted to list all the embarrassing things that
that you said during this episode.
That I don't know. We would be here all night. It would somehow take longer. When Boimler said embarrassing things on his pad, he was talking about.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, he was talking about.
Like a bird took something.
Well, he talked about. He said.
Alien bird.
He says an alien bird ate my comm badge.
Comm badge.
He says. He's talking about how he's better about hiding his purple hair dye.
Yes.
Nobody knows his real hair color is, and then we don't find out what his real hair color is.
But it's going to turn out to be purple, but it's like a slightly different shade of purple.
Exactly. The alien atmosphere is giving me insane gas.
And that was a joke they came back to.
Yeah, because it says I actually woke myself up. The gas pains were so bad, and this is great. I just wish I could fart. I don't know. Just the bluntness of that was perfect.
He's so uptight he probably never farts, or has to fart in some sort of special cubicle.
He has a special device in a special cubicle.
And it's like super like.
He talks about he dropped his Yeah, it probably is weird. It's probably a weird fart. A dry butted fart.
Gross.
He drops his tricorder in the toilets a bunch, which made me wonder: do they have sonic toilets like they have sonic showers, or do they just have normal toilets?
No, they have photon toilets.
Photon toilets.
Yeah, it's sonic showers and photon toilets.
It just blasts.
It just blasts with the light at your butt.
Oh man,
it's like a photon bidet.
Or your pee-pee.
And then this is less embarrassing. I heard Ransom say my name. He might have said Boimler, but still name recognition. But the best one, of course, is the one I haven't said yet.
Horses, of course.
Are you going to say it?
The one where he says he got caught sniffing the captain's chair again. Yes. I was like, that one is the one he should be really embarrassed about. It's like sniffing the
probably the least embarrassed. He just thinks everyone does that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, and when I think of sniffing the chair, maybe he meant like sniffing the armrest, but I think of sniffing the seat of the chair.
See, that's the thing is they play with us there, because I even saw some people on the internet being like, I don't know, that grossed me out a little bit. And I think it's meant to gross you out until you also then realize the hilarity of the fact that he's obviously not trying to sniff Captain Freeman's butt. I mean, that joke works if you want to think of it that way. Right. But he wants the captain's chair, whatever material. I don't know. It's probably not leather, obviously, but
he's
whatever
sniffing the material itself.
Yeah, that just the smell of power, the smell of control.
When I was in high school, I would sometimes, actually throughout my life, I've liked to sniff books every once in a while when you read them, just to smell the ink.
Books put off there's a specific smell that book paper puts off as it ages.
Oh, interesting.
That's like a whole thing.
Yeah, you're right.
You can look that up on the internet.
So I was doing that in class in high school one day.
Paper.
And
sniffing books.
And this person looked at me and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Smelling." I was like, "I'm smelling the book." They smell.
Were you just like leafing through the Oxford Dictionary, just like
smelling every
like a drug dealer flipping through a wad of hundreds? You're just like flipping through the book and being like.
Yeah. That would be weird. No, I just was reading some kind of English book that they teach you in English class, and I was like, and I sniffed it, and this person was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm smelling the ink. Sometimes they smell different. It's interesting."
Yeah.
And then that person goes,
"I know exactly what you're talking about."
And that person looked at me and said, "That's stupid."
What school was that at?
That was at the school we all went to.
Oh man, that fucking place.
We all went to high school. We all matriculated from that particular high school.
That's stupid.
I'm sorry. That's what I didn't catch. Was
no explanation.
You thought he did this when he was like in elementary school?
Yeah.
That's stupid. You thought what's wrong with sniffing books in elementary school?
Do we all know the person?
Nothing.
That
It's just funny that it was in high school and not.
Oh, he thought I was a child.
Do we all know the person that said that? Too?
Yes, we know this person.
That's a good one.
Oh, well, we already know the start of our offline conversation once we conclude this podcast, which we're going to do right now.
It's time to dish.
Later, dudes.
It's the end of the podcast. So, especially for our new listeners, hey,
buttons. You haven't heard that one yet.
New.
Follow us on social media, particularly Twitter, wherever you like.
You've never said so buttons before.
At It's Got Star Trek on Twitter, Instagram, and we're on Facebook. You can find the podcast on YouTube if that is your preference. You might be listening to us on YouTube right now.
What?
Whatever floats your boat.
What?
Watching us on YouTube.
We highly recommend checking out the website, www.itsgotstartrek.com. We've got all the episodes. We post what we're going to be discussing next, of course. But you can also sort through all the podcasts by series. So if you're just interested in the animated series or Deep Space Nine or Voyager, you can click that button and only those episodes in which we cover those shows will come up. And we've covered everything. We've covered at least a little bit of every series.
We've covered everything.
And one movie.
We've got everything.
We will do more Star Trek movies.
We will do the motion pictures
soon. Yeah, we're setting up plans to do Star Trek the motion picture and present it to you all in a fun fashion. Present our discussion of it. But otherwise,
it's going to be a trick.
We are excited to have started our coverage of Lower Decks Season 3.
Indeed.
Looking forward
It's
to
fun.
next week. And they have released the episode name. It's called The Least Dangerous Game. So predict as you want to predict what that might be about. It's no doubt going to be...
I say don't.
It's going to be fun.
I say
Be
don't.
surprised.
All right. So in the intervening time, we wish you all the best. Otherwise, you can download this podcast next week for about the same time from when it became available this week. Next week.
Nobody ever even acknowledged my dolphin joke.
And then we will...
I don't think that's true.
We hope you have a
You
good
did.
time in the intervening time. In the meantime, we're gonna go do other stuff. But we're
We're gonna stand over there for a while.
I think it was on purpose.
Oh yeah, it was on purpose.
We'll talk with
Nice.
you all about the Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 2, the least dangerous
It was
game.
intentional.
Next week. Goodbye.
Bradward, I'm soaked in juice and I need help getting naked.
Spray off with the hose, Leanne.